You ever get the feeling like you're on a treadmill, moving, sweating, pushing, doing everything you were told to do, but your scenery never changes? Like no matter how much work you put in, life circles back to the same place with unnerving precision. You wake up, journal your intentions, meditate, visualize, repeat your affirmations like sacred mantras. You stay high vibe, you trust the universe, you surrender, you do all the inner work, but then you open your eyes, look around, and realize you're still living inside the same emotional weather, just wearing different clothes. New month, same tension in your chest, new goals, same inner silence. It's not laziness. It's not that you didn't try hard enough. It's that you've been tricked into thinking effort alone creates elevation, and it doesn't. You've been taught that if you just do more, if you think more positively, meditate harder, visualize longer, reality will finally bend. But it doesn't, because you're still being you, the same emotional signature, the same frequency loop, and that's the part no one tells you. You can change your actions, your rituals, even your habits. But if you don't change your energetic identity, the quantum field doesn't flinch. It doesn't care how many hours you log doing the work if the work isn't shifting your core frequency. You might dress up the day with positive thinking, but if your nervous system still believes the world is unsafe, if your emotions are still grounded in lack, fear, or self-doubt, the field reflects that, and it reflects it perfectly. It's easy to get caught in the illusion of progress. You feel productive, you're moving, you're active, but the loop isn't broken by motion, it's broken by frequency. And that's the cruel irony. The more you try to do your way out of the loop, the deeper you reinforce that you're not already who you want to be. Every affirmation spoken from a place of disbelief becomes a broadcast of contradiction. Every visualization painted on a canvas of tension becomes noise in the field. It's not that these tools don't work, they do, but they only work when they're aligned with the frequency of your future self, not layered on top of a frequency that hasn't changed. So the truth hits hard. You're not stuck because you're lazy, weak, or unworthy. You're stuck because the signal hasn't changed. The quantum field doesn't respond to effort, it responds to coherence. And coherence means your thoughts, emotions, actions, and energy are all speaking the same language, without contradiction. You can't trick the field. You can't hustle it. You can only match it. And as long as your dominant signal, the one pulsing from your nervous system when you're not performing, is the same as it's always been, the scenery stays the same. That's why things haven't shifted yet. It's not punishment, it's precision. The loop isn't personal, it's just how the system works. Here's where it gets deeper. Most people believe the field is listening to what they want. It isn't. It's listening to what they expect. Not on the surface, deep down, in the trenches of the subconscious. You might say you want abundance, but if you're still emotionally fused to scarcity, the signal gets scrambled. You might want love, but if trust terrifies you, the field won't override that. It'll reflect it. Reality isn't built on what you say, it's built on what you broadcast. And that broadcast is largely unconscious. It's not your fault. No one ever taught you this. You were raised in systems that trained you to prioritize thought over feeling, doing over being, effort over alignment. But the quantum field doesn't care about any of that. It listens to vibration, not words. And vibration is determined by the emotional patterns that have become your baseline. You don't manifest from your vision board. You manifest from your nervous system, from the tone of your inner dialogue when no one's listening, from the emotion that lives in your body when the rituals stop. That's your real point of creation. That's the signal the field can't ignore. So, here's the twist. You've been trying to manifest a new life while still anchored in the emotional identity of your old one. And until that changes, until the you beneath the actions changes, the loop continues. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the signal hasn't shifted, and the field always responds to signal. This is why your life looks the same, even when your actions don't. It's not that the field is resisting your desires. It's that it doesn't hear them clearly. It's too busy reflecting back the frequency you've been unknowingly broadcasting your entire life. What you think is a lack of results is actually a perfect result, a perfect match to your internal state. Wanting something different isn't enough. You have to become different in the spaces where no one is watching. Your job isn't to chase the outcome, it's to tune the frequency. Because once you do, the outcome can't not come. It becomes inevitable, not because you pushed harder, but because you finally became the signal the field recognizes. The loop doesn't break when you try harder. It breaks when you stop vibrating like the version of you who created it. That's where quantum shift begins, not in doing, in being. Think about this. If you've ever found yourself in a situation and said, "Why does this feel so familiar?" That's not a coincidence. That's a signal, a pattern, a vibrational echo playing itself out again, with just enough cosmetic differences to convince you something is changing. But underneath it all, it's the same loop dressed up in new scenery, the same emotional blueprint pulling the strings. You change partners, but end up in the same emotional dynamic. You leave a job and land in another that drains you the same way. You move cities, switch friend groups, start fresh, yet somehow the same feelings follow you like a shadow. That shadow is not bad luck. It's a reflection, a mirror of the emotional reality you haven't interrupted yet. We tend to think of our patterns as behaviors, but behaviors are just surface ripples. The real loop lives deeper in your nervous system, in the felt sense of who you believe you are and what you believe you're allowed to have. Most of it isn't even conscious. It's muscle memory. It's emotional muscle memory. You've rehearsed scarcity, rejection, betrayal, disappointment so many times that your body now considers them normal. Even when you say you want abundance, love, peace, those things feel foreign, unsafe, maybe even a little boring. So you return, unknowingly, to what feels emotionally real, even if it's painful. Your subconscious doesn't crave what's best. It craves what's familiar. You're not repeating these cycles because you're failing. You're repeating them because your frequency hasn't changed. And frequency isn't what you try to emit. It's what your body automatically emits when you're not thinking about it, when you're triggered, when you're tired, when you're just being. That's the real signal the quantum field is responding to. The repetition of reality isn't a glitch. It's the system functioning perfectly. You're looping because your subconscious still believes that loop is safer than what's next. This is the hard truth. Until the frequency of your inner world changes, the outer world has no reason to follow. You can read every book, take every course, do every healing ritual, but if the emotional resonance of your life doesn't shift, the field just keeps giving you more of what matches. Not as punishment, but as precision. The field doesn't judge. It simply reflects. So the question isn't, how do I manifest something new? The question is, what version of me keeps recreating this? The desire to change is real, but desire isn't enough. You have to meet that desire with disruption, with a willingness to notice the loop while you're in it and choose differently, even when your body is screaming for the familiar. You have to become the one who no longer resonates with the pattern, not just intellectually, but energetically. Because the moment you stop responding like the old you, the loop loses power. The feedback stops reinforcing itself. And that's when the field starts listening to a new signal. You can't affirm your way out of a vibration you haven't yet interrupted. You can't mask fear with declarations of confidence if your body is still tuned to self-protection. You can't chant, "I am enough," while your nervous system still braces for rejection every time you speak. The field isn't listening to your words, it's listening to your coherence. And coherence isn't something you perform, it's something you are. In the quiet, in the in-between. When no one's watching and the doubt creeps in and the old feelings resurface, that's the moment that matters most. Because that's where your true broadcast lives. Most people get stuck here. They confuse repetition with transformation. They think if they say the right thing enough times, reality will eventually catch up. But it doesn't work that way. If your affirmations are layered over unresolved trauma or chronic tension, they don't anchor, they bounce. They echo in a field that's already tuned to a different station. You can't override your subconscious beliefs with conscious willpower. The vibration always wins. That's why so many people feel betrayed by manifestation teachings. They're told that positive thinking creates positive results. But if the thinking isn't supported by emotional safety, it collapses under pressure. The truth is, you don't manifest from your vision board. You manifest from your self-concept, from the way your body perceives reality in the micro moments when you're not performing for the universe. When you're just reacting, coping, surviving, that's the raw material of your frequency. So what happens? You declare abundance, but your nervous system tenses when money leaves your account. You say you're open to love, but you flinch at vulnerability. You say you trust the process, but spiral when results don't arrive fast enough. The field hears that, the fear, the flinch, the contraction, and it mirrors it, not to punish you, but to make the invisible visible, to show you where your true signal is coming from. This isn't about shame, this is about power. Because once you understand that the field is reflecting your baseline, not your best moments, you stop relying on performance and start doing the real work, rewiring the signal at the level of identity. Not just repeating better thoughts, but creating new emotional norms, learning to feel safe in expansion, regulating your body to hold joy, peace, and abundance without self-sabotage. And this takes time. This takes practice. But every time you choose a different response, even subtly, you start shifting the signal. Every time you witness an old thought and don't collapse into it, you're interrupting the loop. Every moment you feel fear and choose not to obey it, you're reclaiming your broadcast. That's where the real magic lives. Not in the affirmations or the visualizations, but in the small, quiet, courageous moments where you refuse to be the old frequency for 1 second longer. Because here's what no one tells you. When your signal truly shifts, you don't have to chase manifestations. You become a magnet for them. Not because you're trying to attract anything, but because you're no longer repelling it. You're no longer broadcasting the mixed messages, the emotional confusion, the energetic static. You're clear. And the quantum field has no choice but to reflect clarity with precision. So the question is no longer, why isn't it working? The question is, what signal am I unconsciously repeating? And more importantly, am I willing to stop being loyal to it? Because once you stop speaking abundance and vibrating lack, once you stop saying you're ready and secretly bracing for disappointment, that's when the loop ends. That's when the field shifts. That's when reality finally catches up to the version of you who already lives in the world you've been trying to create. You can change your mindset, your habits, your daily routine, and still, your life will feel frustratingly unchanged. Why? Because your body is still living in the past. Your nervous system, your cells, your muscle memory, they're still tuned to a frequency that no longer matches who you say you want to become. You can think new thoughts, speak new affirmations, even take bold new actions. But if your body is still regulated to old emotional states like anxiety, fear, scarcity, or unworthiness, that becomes the frequency you broadcast. Not what you say, not what you wish, what you are at the deepest level, when you're not trying to impress, when you're not performing, when you're just being. That's the real you the quantum field responds to. And the body is persistent. It doesn't evolve just because the mind wants to. It evolves because it's taught how to feel safe in the unfamiliar. Most people try to rewire their life from the top down, change their thoughts, change their behavior, maybe sprinkle in some spiritual routines. But the nervous system doesn't follow verbal commands. It follows emotional repetition. If you've spent 10 years normalizing stress, shame, or self-criticism, your body doesn't suddenly feel at home in joy or expansion just because you read it in a book. In fact, the more unfamiliar those higher states are, the more your system will resist them. And that resistance? It's subtle. You won't always catch it at first. It shows up as procrastination, overthinking, distraction, emotional numbing, or even physical fatigue. You might be excited about a new opportunity, but then suddenly you're too tired to follow through. Or a relationship starts to deepen, and out of nowhere, you shut down or create conflict. That's not random. That's your nervous system pulling you back into the loop, not because it's malicious, but because it's conditioned. It's still tuned to the past. And until you teach your body a new way to feel, you'll keep creating situations that match the emotional blueprint it knows best. This is why so many people sabotage their own growth right at the edge of transformation. You say you want a new identity, but your body only knows how to be the old one. It remembers the patterns of tension, the emotional habits of survival. And so, even when the path forward is clear, you hesitate. You look for reasons to delay. You find comfort in the very habits you said you wanted to leave behind. Not because you're broken, but because your body doesn't yet feel safe in the new frequency. And here's the paradox. The bigger the shift you're trying to make, the louder the body will react. This isn't just emotional, it's physiological. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shortens, your gut tenses, your muscles tighten. You might feel drained, anxious, even sick. And if you don't understand what's happening, you'll misinterpret this as a sign to stop, to slow down, to stay where it's safe. But what's really happening is that your body is detoxing from a lifetime of vibrational patterns that no longer fit. This isn't regression, it's recalibration. And most people mistake that recalibration for failure. They assume something's wrong. They assume they're not doing it right. So they double down on effort, more affirmations, more techniques, more strategies. But none of that works if the body still interprets the new frequency as a threat. You can't force a nervous system to evolve. It has to be trained, gently, consistently, with awareness. You have to teach your body that calm is safe, that joy is normal, that abundance isn't dangerous, that love won't lead to loss. You have to build those emotional states into the very fabric of your being until they no longer feel like a performance. They feel like home. And it starts in the moment most people run. The moment of discomfort. The moment when your chest tightens, when your mind spirals, when your impulse is to retreat back to what's familiar. That's the initiation. That's the threshold between your old self and the new one. Not the breakthrough, the discomfort before it. Because right before you shift, your old frequency will flare up. It will make one last attempt to pull you back. It will surface in ways that feel overwhelming, irrational, sometimes even chaotic. Not because you're failing, but because you're close. The closer you get to a new frequency, the more fiercely the old one tries to anchor itself. You might experience waves of doubt, sudden fear, emotional flashbacks, old thoughts returning like ghosts, patterns you thought you'd healed re-emerging with fresh intensity. That's not a setback, it's exposure. The loop is being revealed in full so it can be released fully. The system is destabilizing not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. But this is where most people give up. They interpret resistance as a red flag instead of a signal. They think they failed and return to the old identity. They reattach to the loop, and the pattern continues. The scenery shifts slightly, but the cycle stays the same. Not because they didn't want the shift badly enough, but because they didn't recognize the discomfort as the shift. They waited for peace to arrive before claiming peace. They waited for proof before believing in possibility. But the field doesn't shift when you're comfortable. It shifts when you're coherent. And coherence is born in the fire of choice. When you feel the familiar fear rise and still choose a different response. When the panic knocks and you stay grounded. When the old story whispers and you don't listen. That's the moment your signal starts to change. That's the moment the field pays attention. Because now, you're not reacting from your past. You're choosing from your future. And that choice? It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's a breath. Sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it's simply not running away from the feeling that's rising. The body starts to learn. We can survive this. We don't have to flinch. We don't have to brace. And little by little, it begins to trust the new frequency. Not because you told it to, because you showed it, over and over, with presence, with patience, with power. So if you're in that space right now, where everything feels uncertain, where the old you doesn't fit anymore, but the new you hasn't fully landed, don't retreat. You're not broken. You're in the recalibration. The signal is shifting. Let the old frequency fall apart. Let the discomfort rise without assigning it meaning. You're not being tested. You're being rewired. The field is listening. The body is learning. And the loop is losing its grip, not through effort, but through evolution. There's a moment, subtle, easy to miss, that holds more power than all your rituals, meditations, or mindset work combined. It doesn't look like transformation. It doesn't come with a flash of clarity or a lightning bolt of certainty. In fact, it often feels like frustration, like heaviness, like something inside you is stretched so thin it might snap. And if you're not paying attention, you'll think it's just another bad day, just another dip. But that moment, that friction, that tension, is often the exact point where you're closest to a quantum shift. Not the final result, not the breakthrough you can post about, but the space right before it, where the old frequency starts to collapse and the new one hasn't fully stabilized. Most people don't recognize this moment for what it is, because it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like nothing is working. You might feel like you're floating between worlds, uncertain of who you are or what you're doing. Old doubts resurface, familiar fears get louder, patterns you thought you buried come back sharper than ever. It feels disorienting, like you're being pulled in two directions. One part of you desperately wants to leap forward, the other clings to the known, the safe, the repeatable. That tug of war is not a mistake. It's an invitation, a test not of your strength, but of your alignment. Can you hold the vibration of your future self without evidence? Can you keep your frequency stable when your external reality still mirrors your past? This is the edge of the loop, the moment right before the pattern either repeats or dissolves. And what determines the outcome isn't what's happening around you, it's what you choose to do within you. Most people collapse here. They interpret the discomfort as a warning and pull back. They water down their vision, they settle. They tell themselves it wasn't realistic anyway. And the moment they do, the loop reactivates. The quantum field senses the shift in their signal, the doubt, the contraction, the return to familiarity, and it responds accordingly. Not as punishment, but as reflection. But if you can stay, if you can witness the discomfort without retreating, everything begins to reorganize. That moment of high emotional intensity is your access point. That's when you're most energetically malleable. That's when the old neural pathways are vulnerable and new ones can be carved. Your body may be screaming for you to go back, but if you stay rooted, if you keep breathing, if you refuse to collapse, the signal begins to shift. And when the signal shifts, the field responds. It's subtle at first, a strange sense of calm where you used to spiral, a delayed reaction that allows you to pause instead of panic, a moment of clarity that cuts through the noise. These are not minor victories. These are quantum markers, signs that your internal landscape is no longer owned by the version of you who created the loop. This is how the shift starts. Not with a thunderclap, but with a steady unraveling of the identity that held your old reality in place. And with every moment you don't abandon yourself, every time you choose presence over panic, you send a new signal into the field. I am no longer available for the old frequency. But here's what makes this process truly powerful. You don't just disrupt the pattern, you replace it. And this is where most people stop. They interrupt the loop, but leave a void. And nature, including the quantum field, abhors a vacuum. If you don't consciously install a new frequency, the old one returns by default. So once you've created space by not reacting as the old you, you must fill it by feeling as the new you. This isn't a thought exercise, it's a full body shift. Your nervous system needs to experience the new vibration, not in theory, but in felt, emotional reality. You do this by connecting with the version of you who already lives the life you desire, not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, as frequency. Close your eyes, find them, feel their breath, their posture, the way they respond to life. They are calm, grounded, certain, not because everything is perfect, but because they know who they are. They're not broadcasting need, they're not stuck in survival. They radiate a quiet power that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't grasp. That's the version of you that already exists in the field. You're not creating them, you're tuning into them. Now bring that emotional tone into your body, even for a few seconds. Feel what it's like to belong to that version of yourself. Let your nervous system taste what it means to be safe in expansion, safe in success, safe in love. This is not pretend, it's practice, and your body learns through repetition. The more often you bring in this state, calm, abundant, radiant, the more familiar it becomes, the less your system resists it, the more natural it feels. Eventually, the old frequency can no longer compete. The new vibration becomes your baseline, and the field begins to match it. What most people miss is this. The future you desire already exists in the field. It's not distant, it's not hidden, it's not being withheld, it's waiting. waiting for you to stabilize into the frequency that allows it to appear, not because it was locked away, but because you were tuned to the wrong station. When you begin to embody the state of being that belongs to the future version of you, not perform it, not fake it, embody it, you collapse the time between where you are and where you want to be. Reality begins to organize around the new signal, not because you demanded it, but because you became it. So the question isn't, when will it happen? The question is, am I being the version of me it happens to? Every moment you hold your new frequency, even when the old one claws at you, you are casting a new mold for your life. Every second you resist the pull of reaction and instead choose resonance, you rewire the future. This is the moment that matters most, not the breakthrough, not the manifestation. This, right here, where nothing seems to be moving, yet everything is shifting. You don't shift your life by forcing it. You don't change your reality by obsessing over timelines, watching the clock, or demanding signs from the universe to prove that you're on the right path. That kind of urgency, that desperation to know it's working, is actually one of the strongest signals that it's not. Not because you're being punished, but because the field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And urgency is the frequency of lack. It's the embodiment of "I don't have it yet." The moment you need proof, you've already disconnected from the signal of trust. And when your signal is broadcasting doubt, no matter how much action you take, how many intentions you set, or how badly you want it, the field reflects that doubt with stunning precision. In the quantum field, time doesn't operate the way we think it does. Reality doesn't shift according to the deadlines you've written in your journal. It shifts according to your alignment. And alignment has nothing to do with hustle. It has nothing to do with how many tasks you check off or how high vibe your Instagram feed looks. Alignment means that your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and energy are speaking the same language. It means that there's no internal war happening while you're trying to manifest. It means that your inner world feels like the future you say you're calling in, even when the outer world doesn't reflect it yet. That's coherence. And coherence is magnetic. When you're coherent, your energy stabilizes. It becomes a clear, clean signal. And in a world of static, where most people are sending out noise, contradictions, and scattered intentions, a clear signal stands out like a beacon. That's why the shift often feels effortless once it begins, because you're not forcing reality anymore. You've simply become too coherent with a new frequency for the old one to hold you. Your reality starts reorganizing, not through effort, but through inevitability. But here's where most people get trapped. They keep checking. They keep asking, is it working yet? That checking impulse seems harmless, but energetically it says, I don't trust that it is. And the moment you signal that distrust, you interrupt the coherence. You go back to oscillation, back to contradiction, back to instability. So if you really want to shift, you have to be willing to stop asking for proof. You have to act and feel as if it's already done, not as a performance, but as a baseline. You don't wait for peace to arrive. You become peace. You don't wait for abundance to show up before relaxing. You relax into abundance now. That's how you shift. Most people believe they need to do more, push harder, work smarter. But in the quantum, more isn't always better. Coherence is better. Consistency is better. And the most powerful consistency isn't found in what you do once. It's found in who you become repeatedly, in the thoughts you think when no one's listening, in the way you feel in the quiet hours of the day when nothing seems to be happening. If you can hold your frequency there, in the uncertainty, in the silence, then you've already begun collapsing the old timeline. The field doesn't respond to what you do when it's easy. It responds to what you are when it's not. So the real shift isn't when the money shows up, or the relationship, or the opportunity. The real shift happens in the moment you stop needing it to prove your worth. The moment you stop negotiating with life for permission to feel whole. That's when you've crossed over. That's when the new signal has taken root. And from that place, you begin to move through life differently, not chasing outcomes, not gripping timelines, not fearing what you might lose. You begin to walk as the future you, not just in thought, but in posture, in breath, in presence. And when you walk as the version of you who already has it, reality bends to reflect it back, because it has to. This isn't a concept. This is a frequency, a way of being that becomes so natural, so embodied, that the old self no longer fits. Not because you hate it, but because you've simply outgrown it. And when that happens, the field doesn't resist. It adapts. Your new reality begins forming not because you forced it into being, but because there's no longer any resonance with the old one. The vibrational structure of your past identity collapses, and the space it leaves behind is filled by what your new signal calls in. This is the quiet power of quantum embodiment. You're not waiting for your life to catch up. You're living it forward. You're not looking for signs. You are the sign. Your presence, your posture, your peace, they become the evidence that something has shifted, even when no one else can see it yet. And that's the greatest trust you can place in yourself, the knowing that you don't need external validation to confirm your inner evolution. So now the question becomes, are you willing to stop responding like the version of you who needed proof? Are you willing to stay steady when the loop tries to pull you back? Because it will. It will whisper through triggers, distractions, familiar patterns. It will test your nervous system's commitment to the new. But every time you don't flinch, every time you stay rooted in the new signal, you become more magnetic. You radiate stability in a world that's constantly grasping. You become unshakable, and the field cannot ignore that. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to anchor frequencies, to tune into the version of you that already exists in the field and walk in step with them. Not just in your mind, but in your energy, in your nervous system, in your choices. That's how the loop ends. Not with force, with fidelity to the frequency of who you really are. And the truth is, this shift isn't something you do once. It's not a single event. It's a daily choice, a moment-to-moment recalibration, the quiet discipline of being someone new before life catches up. That's what mastery looks like. Not perfection, but consistency. Not control, but coherence. And the longer you live in that frequency, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, without even noticing, you look around and realize the world has changed. Not because it finally gave you what you wanted, but because you stopped being the version of you who was trying so hard to get it. And in that stillness, in that peace, you'll know the shift didn't happen to you. It happened through you. The loop ended the moment you stopped feeding it, the moment you stopped asking for signs and started acting like the signal. That's the truth of quantum creation, and now you're living it.